Now, last week I talked to Melissa Nova, who's one of the leading thinkers around being emergent. This week, along those same lines, I had the privilege of interviewing Dave Snowden. Now, Dave is a management consultant and researcher in the field of complexity and sense making. And if we ever need help making sense in the world, this is when we do. Now, he created the IBM Institution for Knowledge Management and did work with DARPA. And out of that work came this thing called the Keynesian Model, which is about managing complexity. Now, it was the cover article in the Harvard Business Review in November of 2007. And I highly recommend you Google Snowden HBR. It should be the first thing that comes up. And read that article because it actually changed the way I view, frankly, living my life, but certainly how to manage and lead in this time of the coronavirus. Anyway, check out the interview. It's coming up right now. I'm getting a lot of questions from business owners. Daily emails, calls, like, what do I do next? Or what do I do now? And it's the first time in my career of 35 years where I can't just say, do this.
So we're saying there's some basic things you do. First of all, is you manage the constraints. You need to understand what constraints you can manage. Yeah, forget everything else. And then you need to start to work on those. Secondly, you need to create learning now, because the learning during the crisis is critical. The second thing is you've never had a better chance to innovate. So finding practices which people are adopting in a crisis, which actually have utility, and finding ways to take those forward are valuable. And the next thing you have to do is to set up an unintended consequences team. Because the one thing you know with absolute certainty in a crisis is whatever you do will have unintended consequences. So you need to model them, and you also need to react to them, because a lot of the unintended consequences will be beneficial if you've got the sense to see it. Yeah. And then the final thing we're telling people to do is monitor for outliers, which is literally whole of workforce engagement in sense making, and find the people in that workforce who are thinking differently about the problem. So if you can get the whole of your workforce doing what's called micro situational analysis and micro scenario planning, then you've actually got cognitive, cultural, experiential diversity in your primary sense making. So you won't miss weak signals. And remember, our stuff originally came from DARPA work on counterterrorism. And the point about weak signal detection is after the event, you all know what you should have seen. But at the time, you don't. So the techniques were developed to make those visible.
So one thing I tell companies to do is look at their core competency, look at their talent, and how might they apply that in other areas? What are the other things people should be looking for in that repurposing?
I think one of the key things is to match existing capability against unarticulated needs. The other thing is distributed sensing. There are people in your organization who have seen things you can do, and they're being filtered out before they get to senior management. And we call that finding the 17%. So that's a reference to a famous set of experiments in which radiologists were shown a batch of x-rays. On the final x-ray, a picture of a gorilla, which is 48 times the size of a cancer nodule, was put in plain view. They were asked to spot anomalies, and 83% didn't see the gorilla. And the 17% who did came to believe they were wrong when they talked with the 83%. So from a senior executive position, you need to be pulsing or scanning your community every few days to identify the 17%, because somebody out there is spotting things.
You referenced Dan Hill's Medium post where he talked about the COVID-19 crisis being an A/B test on our way of life.
Yeah.
What's your thinking about that? I'm curious why, you referenced it.
I said we did a big podcast on complexity and COVID the other day. And one of the things I said in it, which I may learn to regret, is that COVID was God's gift to humanity. Because it's kind of like, so I'm a Catholic, all right? So this is kind of like it's a purgatory period, but you've got a chance of redemption. Because global warming is going to be far more catastrophic than this. And the next pandemic might have a 6-week gestation period and take 80%. Coronavirus already has 16 variants within the last 6 months, and it's mutating fast. So I think it's a chance to get our act together. Lincoln famously said something, it's my favorite thing from Lincoln, all right? But he said, as the times are anew, we must think anew, we must act anew. And the combination is key. We've got to think differently as well as acting differently.
Now, I'm talking a lot about managing complexity because the XR market, which most of us play in, is inherently complex. New technology, new user behaviors, new products, new markets, new applications happening all the time, right? And now in the time of coronavirus, it's actually gotten off the charts and really kind of bordering on chaos. And so you really need to be emergent in this time and how you're managing your business and managing your life. And that means you're going to probe, you're going to sense, you're going to respond, you're going to try things, you're going to look at the reactions, you're going to try something else. And so you can learn faster by being open. And in this time, you really need to be fast. So you can watch the whole interview with Dave, again, beingvirtual.tv, and it'll be up on my YouTube channel this afternoon.